can you just explain what your sense is of what coronaphobia actually is and how it's affecting people?
Well, good evening, Dan. It's always good to be with you. Yes, coronaphobia, as it's called, is any phobia, by the way, is an irrational fear. So it's absolutely rational to have some concern, fear of the coronavirus. But if it's so extreme that it's stopping you from engaging with the world, living a normal life, and spoiling your quality of life, then it's a bad thing. So I would say to people, because people tend to be in three categories. There are people that are absolutely terrified by it. They're imagining there are germs everywhere, and it's kind of spoiling their life, paralyzing them. There are people who are in the middle who are taking the appropriate precautions, and then there are people who really, not looking after themselves at all. So I would say that if you are one of those people that is catastrophizing, is thinking, if I go out into the world, oh my word, I'm going to get contaminated. Oh, I don't know how I'm going to handle it. And you're frightened and paralyzed and your world's become smaller, then you fit into that category. Because if you've taken all reasonable precautions, you've got a face mask, you wash your hands, you socially distance, etc., all the stuff that we know what to do. Then on that basis, given that the scientific information is, it is reasonably safe to go back out. I've used techniques to help people to begin to orient their mind towards engaging with the world again. Because there are other people as well who are frightened about going out into the world and, the world being different and not really knowing their place in the system, as it were. So going to work and it feeling a bit weird. And so that contributes to the feeling of unease and anxiety.
I loved your advice about how to sort of banish negativity from your thoughts. Can you just explain how people can do that? Because I thought it was really helpful.
Sure. Well, this is something I call the negative thought fast. Now, what a lot of people do is they imagine it's 2 and 2 equals 32. So they imagine, I'll go back out, oh, I could get it, and then it'll be terrible, and I'll be dead, and boom, 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 etc. And they haven't even left the house. Now, the purpose of that kind of negative thinking is protection, but it's just overdoing its job. It's exponentially adding concern into fear, into stress, into catastrophe, right? And so what I suggest to people is a very simple process. If you find yourself feeling bad, because you can only feel bad if you remember something bad that happened to you, or if you imagine something bad that could happen. There's no other way to feel bad. Those are the only two ways. And if you find you're feeling bad, you're feeling tense, you're feeling anxious, you're panicky, stop and get the message from the emotion. So the emotion will be telling you, it's a protective thing, right? Because fear says be prepared. And it'll be saying something like, well, I really ought to watch out for that or that or that. And then on that, you take that advice and you go, I will do this and this and this, yeah? And then what should happen is the feeling of fear or anxiety should disappear. But if it doesn't, you go back and you look, what is it again? Oh, I see, I haven't thought of that. And then this is what I do. For example, say I get a feeling of fear and I go, all right, what am I frightened about? Oh, I know, I'm frightened about that meeting that's coming up next Wednesday. And I haven't thought about that, and I should say that, or I could be asked about that. So the fear was trying to alert me to a potential problem. Then what I do is I think about the meeting, and if it's still worrying me, I make the picture of it black and white, I shrink it, and I move it away, and I bring in a picture of things going really well. So what I'm doing is, instead of feeding the fear and the more, what I'm doing is I'm taking the message from the fear, I'm pushing it away, and then I'm bringing in what I'm going to do and making it positive.
I love it. I think it's such a good idea, and I thought a lot about it and tried a little bit over the weekend, and it did work. What other good techniques can people use to sort of try and banish coronaphobia, Paul?
Well, there's two others. I mean, the last time I was on with you, Dan, we talked about heart math.
Oh, yes, I love this one, yeah.
It's fantastic. So if you are, say, traveling to work, or you're on public transport, you suddenly start to feel frightened. This technique is used by all 4 divisions of the American military. Very simple. You put your hand on your heart. Simply by doing that, you bring your attention to your heart. And then what happens is you take 3 deep breaths, because when people are stressed, they don't breathe properly. So you breathe in slowly, and you breathe out. And you breathe in slowly, and you breathe out. And as you take the 3rd breath and breathe out, you remember a time that you felt really good, and you return to that time like you're back there again now. You see what you saw, you hear what you heard, and you feel all the good feelings. It might be a time when you fell in love, it might be a time you're on holiday or laughing with friends. Really return to it, and usually in less than a minute, you change your state from anxious to calm and resilient. I mean, the other thing I would suggest, Dan, is that A lot of people, because of the nature of the phobia, the virus, they've been inside for a very long time and their world's become small. The whole idea of going back out seems a bit challenging. So I suggest that people do something that athletes do called mental rehearsal. And this is where they imagine going back out into the world and things going really well, but you imagine it a bit at a time. There was a lady a few years ago who lost 140 pounds on my weight loss system and had run 3 marathons. And I asked her, how did you do this? And she said, well, I started walking the dog. And then one day I thought I'll walk the dog a bit further. Then I'll walk him a bit further. I know I'll jog with the dog. Actually, I'll jog a bit further. Actually, I'll run with the dog, until she built to a half marathon, then a full marathon, then another marathon, and so on. So what I would say is very simple, is instead of catastrophizing and thinking about all the things that could go wrong, which is your protection mechanism, stop and think about the things that could go right. What I suggest is you, in your mind, just take a few moments to imagine you're watching a movie of you going back out into the world. Maybe traveling to work with your mask on and, doing the things you need to, washing your hands, engaging with people. And in that movie, make you look confident, resilient, motivated. And then when that movie looks good in your imagination, float into you in the movie. See through the eyes of your more confident, motivated self. Hear through the ears and feel how much more confident and motivated you do. And if you do this over and over again, as Olympic athletes do, before they take part in an event, they imagine winning the event over and over again. So they're literally training their brain and their body, the muscle memory in their body, to give them that peak state of performance when they need it. If you do this over and over again, or if you just do it first thing in the morning for 5 minutes, that sets you up for success.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm going to try that one. Paul McKenna, what brilliant advice about how to deal with Coronaphobia, how to beat it. Of course, a world-renowned hypnotist, host of the Positivity Podcast, and there's lots more information and specifics from Paul McKenna about how to beat Coronaphobia in today's edition of The Sun. I truly recommend it.